So, I don't really talk to a lot of people. I don't really like to. But I do like to hear myself talk. So, I have something to share. And I'm going to record it for absolutely no reason. And I am not in a squeaky chair outside where you can hear people drive by or people's AC units kick on or this chair squeak or crickets or anything or a motorcycle that should not be revving at midnight, but whatever. Um, and also, I need to make sure I refrain from using the word honestly. Apparently, if you say an honestly, you are AI or something like that. I don't know. But, you know, I just like to explain something because just so this community, this online hidden world community, if you've never been around it, none of what I'm saying right now is going to make any sense. Because most people assume they know what the internet is. They believe they know what the internet is. That a horn honking at 12:30 at night? Oh my god. But people think of the internet, they think Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, politics, people arguing in the comments, whatever else just sits right there in the open where everyone can see it. And that's not the world I'm talking about. The world I'm talking about is one that most people don't even know exists. Maybe older people. I mean, younger people might know, but for the most part, a lot of people don't. It's. I don't think I'm gonna edit this. If I stutter or anything, I'm just gonna leave it because who cares? But there are these communities that are built around people, not celebrities or, I guess, regular people. There are entire groups that will watch certain individuals and talk about them, record them. I'm someone who does it too. Called a-logging. These communities have their own language, and if you're in these communities, you know not to mention it to people outside of them. They don't know what you're talking about. I made that mistake like a week ago. I mentioned a-logging by accident, and they were so confused, and I had to debate on whether or not I wanted to try to explain it. But there's people here that follow every piece of drama on these people. There's these stories built around these people. People argue about them. There's people that defend them. A lot of people like to hate them. You either make them into a hero, or most of the time they're made into villains, right? And if you're outside of it, it just sounds absolutely ridiculous. It sounds like something that shouldn't exist, but it does. A strange part is, once you're inside of these worlds for long enough, it will start to feel normal. You recognize names, and you might recognize patterns. You start recognizing the same type of people with the same arguments and the same power structures. And, the stories start being different but the same. And loyalty tests, cycles, and after a while, I don't know about other people, but like for me, I stopped paying attention to the people and paying attention to the patterns instead. Yeah, there's a long pause because I think there's a. I don't know. I have coyotes. I think there's a coyote. Anyways, um, so it was like 3 years ago, I think. actually goes back a little further than that. I don't know. That's part of the problem. Every time I think I found the beginning, I remember something that happened before that, and I'm like, oh, well, that's important too. But like many moons ago, I got pulled into this world out of nowhere. I didn't even know this world existed. I wasn't looking for it. I mean, how could I be looking for it if it didn't exist, right? But I just somehow ended up in this world. And I would notice things, right? Not huge things, just these little things. Things that would be directed toward me that by themselves, not very important, but when you put them together, they feel like something. Then again, it could just be because I always paid attention to things other people seem not to. You know? Okay. I have a degree, an engineering degree, electronic engineering. I was the only girl in the class. And actually, that reminds me of something unrelated. Well, maybe it is related. I worked at a factory, right? And I subscribed to Psychology Today. And on my lunch break, when the new issue would come out that month, I would be reading Psychology Today on my lunch break. Yes, I subscribed to it. But people would think that was so funny, right? I'm a legit retard. I have an IQ test of my IQ's 87. Some people in here tell you theirs is like over 160. I'm not ashamed. Mine was 87. I am literally retarded, I think. I got in a lot of trouble when the results came back, but yeah, I am literally, I can prove I am IQ of 87, right? But think about it. There's this retard. You work with this retard, right? You work with this retard and you're on lunch and you see them sitting outside reading Psychology Today. That's so funny to me. But this would confuse people, right? Because that did not match the version of me they thought they knew. Because I've kind of always hid behind humor. Hide's not the right word. It's, I don't know. Just people look at me and see a clown. I'm full of jokes, I'm a bunch of nonsense. I act ridiculous because people don't always see the person that is paying attention, which is what always got me into trouble. So around here, that's what happened. I started paying attention, and every time I thought I understood what I was looking at, it would change shape. That's the best way to explain it. It kept changing shape. I think I was looking at one thing, then something would happen, and then I'd be paying attention to something else that was connected to it. Then something connected to that. And everything connected. I'm not schizophrenic. I've never been diagnosed. And if I were schizophrenic, these things would be occurring outside of the internet too, okay? But sometimes it got to where I wasn't even sure what the subject was. Like, there was one point I thought I was paying attention to gang stalking, or these gang stalking discussions, if that makes sense. And it's not because I believed I was being gang stalked. I wasn't, or was I? But I started telling people I was being gang stalked. If anyone could remember that, it drove people crazy. But I started telling people I was being gang stalked just to see what happened, I wanted to see who would laugh at me, or how many people would believe me. Would anyone ask me for details? Who decided I was crazy? Who told people I was crazy? Who immediately would think I was telling the truth? And what I noticed was people seemed to react to the label before they would even react to my stories. The second certain words enter a conversation, people know what they think. If I said gang stalking, people already knew what they thought about it, right? Or did they? But then, that would connect to something else. Stories. People would become stories. And then there's points where it just felt like a lot of people stopped being people and they were just characters. You have different characters. You have the liar, the crazy person. There's always got to be a villain. Then you'd have victims. Some would be the hero. But I noticed once somebody would become one of those, victim, a villain, a hero, whatever, it seemed impossible for people to see them as anything else. Then you have the lolcows. I don't even know how you would explain this to somebody outside these communities, because most people don't even know what that word means, right? But I was like, maybe I could understand all this better if I get closer to it. It didn't really work the way I expected, right? I need to quit saying right. I was pushing myself to be the lolcow character because I wanted to see people's reactions, how it would work. It's like an experiment for myself, right? The lolcow character drove people nuts, and it worked a little too well because to this day there are people that still don't get it, right? I said right again. I need to quit saying right. But when it came to the lolcow part, what started to stand out to me was the cruelty, the amount of cruelty. Far away, it's easy to think that people deserve whatever is happening to them, but then you get a little closer and you realize how many people are just repeating things they've never checked. A bunch of parrots parroting. So many people will know something sounds wrong and they will stay quiet. Many people seem to be more interested in the stories than whether the stories are true. Then I'd see the same thing somewhere else. It could be different people in this server, that server, a total different drama, but it would be the same feeling, just the details changed, but the pattern didn't. And then I started noticing something else. Every community seemed to build okay, we know I can't say algorithmic, but I also have a hard time saying hierarchy. Hierarchy, I can spell it. It's HIERARCHY. Let me look real quick. I know social structure. I'll just find a word to replace it because I don't know if hierarchy. I don't hear people say that every day, so they always say you shouldn't make fun of someone for misusing a word because it means it's a word people around them don't use, which means they're trying to expand their mind, right? Is that a cope? I'm going to say pecking order because it sounds ridiculous. There seems to be a pecking order whether people want to believe they exist. I think everyone knows they exist. But in these pecking orders, I'm going to make it a thing. Everyone's going to start saying pecking orders. There's people who become protected and people that are just disposable. And you got the others who get the benefit of the doubt no matter what. Usually the people who don't deserve it. People who never get any benefit of anything. And then there's these weird loyalty tests. And I don't even think most people realize they're participating in these loyalty tests. There'll be a person who gets accused of something, and everybody's watching. You got the people who join in, and others will stay quiet. And a lot of people will disagree privately, but publicly they'll agree. And then for the longest time, I thought those people really believed what they were saying. Not so sure now. Well, whatever. I think a lot of people just don't want the spotlight turned toward them, and that's weakness to me. Maybe it's not, but it is. And something that would confuse me was this whole evidence thing. People always act like evidence will settle things, but a lot of the time, evidence just makes people angry. That just doesn't make sense to me. It just feels like the problem isn't usually lack of evidence. The problem is often that evidence exists. Once people become attached to their stories around this community, evidence becomes a problem. And then something else I noticed, I still don't know what to do with it, but people want simple explanations for the type of people who are in these communities, stereotypes. They're, in these types of communities, oh, they're losers, weirdos. Oh, they're obviously people who never leave their house, never touch grass. But that explanation doesn't fit what I've seen, or me even, and I'm in these communities, right? I said right again. Oh my gosh. I can be in a Discord call and be driving around or walking through a store, which I've learned to not have it on speaker or announce I'm in a store. That could have turned out very bad. That was a lesson. Yeah, I could be running errands, working, just living my life. And in real life, there are people who love me. There are people who care about me. People who don't know this world exists. So the stereotypes of the type of people in these communities don't explain much. There's something else there. Just, I noticed it seemed a lot of people seem hurt. Or maybe you could say damaged. That's not the right word either. There just seems to be something there. Sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes it's not. You gotta wonder if some people have been through things they didn't even recognize was abuse. The masking. Sometimes I wonder if everybody just wears masks everywhere. You have your work self. You have the self you are with family. The person you are in public. There's a version of you that strangers get. Friends can see a different version. They get their own version. And then online, it becomes either another mask, or is it maybe the place where people take off the mask? I still don't know which. Maybe both. I've met someone from the internet in real life, and they were nothing like the person I thought I knew. They weren't a little different. They were completely different. I instantly did not know who this person was when I met them in real life. People can mask so well online. But then I've gotten to know someone I hadn't met, but they were the most incredible person in a long time that I've gotten to know. But someone else could tell you they were the devil, and we'd both be telling the truth because we both got different versions of them. But the longer you stay around these communities, the harder it becomes to sort people into heroes and villains, because people are messy. Life is messy. Then something recently happened that reminded me why I was even around this area in the first place. It's not because I left. I'm still around a little bit. But eventually, it was as though I don't really have anywhere left to stand in it. there's too many assumptions and too many stories get attached to you. And then often there's too many people deciding who you are before they even talk to you. And doors start to quietly close. And oddly, that's what made me remember I was never supposed to become part of it, anyways. I was just supposed to be looking at it, trying to understand it, trying to understand what I had gotten pulled into. People will say, oh, it's just the internet. I don't buy that. How is it just the internet? If these are the people you talk to every day and the people you are spending your time with, and you know, they make you laugh, they can make you angry. Sometimes you question yourself. Sometimes they have you doubting yourself. Maybe sometimes, often you'll feel understood, or other times you'll feel hated. How is that not real? Hmm? That could be why I struggle to explain any of this, because every time I think I know what I'm looking at, it changes shape again. Am I looking at trolling? Or am I trying to figure out gang stalking? Am I trying to understand locales? Or, like, is this trying to understand abuse and abuse victims? Conformity? Or maybe I'm just looking at these people building tiny micro societies without realizing it. I heard someone call it a micro society. I don't know if that's what it's called. But maybe all these things just connect, and that's why I could never separate them. I just know that I got pulled into a world I didn't know existed. Every time I thought I figured it out, or figured out what I was looking at, there seemed to be something else sitting right behind it.